Today, we're going to talk about mass hysteria. This is a big picture concept that unfortunately you run into a lot of in history. I wish we didn't, but we do. And literally, it's when societies go crazy, and it happens throughout history. Situations are different, but repeatedly we see this pattern. So let's start with a comic, which what you can see here, I kind of like this one. It's just shows hysteria at its best. We do like to think of it as witches. Of course, it spans more topics than that. But we can start with just an explanation of the word hysteria. And where it comes from, because the fact that we're going to start with the witch trials sort of helps. So the word hysteria originally comes from the Greek root hyster, which is actually means uterus. And so sort of by definition, the only group that was thought that could be hysterical were women. And they tended to apply this to women who wanted the right to vote, didn't want to stay at home as housewives, any number of things. But that's kind of the origin of our word. And when you think of hysterical, people think of different things, but I think of people screaming uncontrollably and just going nuts. So again, the word has a sexist origins to it for sure. So what does it mean? What is mass hysteria? So it's something that happens throughout history when a society or a group, they suspend what they would regularly do and they do things they wouldn't normally do. And these can include trials, it can include lynchings, group persecutions, you can ostracize people, and it just always happens. One of my favorite shows is Star Trek The Next Generation, and with the new show Picard coming on CBS, for you Trekkie fans out there. Star Trek, though, being like all good science fiction, is always about something else. It's usually a commentary on modern society. So this is from an episode of Star Trek. We'll watch the clip in a minute, but where they're looking for a spy on the Enterprise. And it's a great quote. It says, "We think we've come so far. Torture of heretics, burning of witches. It's all ancient history. Then, before you can blink an eye, suddenly it threatens to start all over again." And that's true. So we'd like to think we've come a long way, but we're not. So where does it come from? Why? So it's rooted in human nature. We are scared of things that we don't understand. Things happen. And so we often need a place to fix our blame. And it's easy to blame someone or something else as opposed to just it happens. So throughout history, we see this again and again. So the European witch trials, which we'll talk about, the Salem witch trials in 1692, which we have a lot of documentation on, the Black Death in 1348, killing half of Europe, the Red Scare in the 1940s and 50s, post 9/11 America, race riots from the late 1800s through the 1930s, and you could make the case America today. And so it's, again, the society does things we wouldn't do. So here's our clip from Star Trek. We will watch that.
Have I bothered you, Captain?
No, please, Mr. Wolf, come in.
It is over. Admiral Henry has called an end to any more hearings on this matter.
That's good.
Admiral Satie has left the Enterprise.
We think we've come so far. Torture of heretics, burning of witches, all ancient history. Then, before you can blink an eye, suddenly it threatens to start all over again.
I believed her. I helped her. I did not see what she was.
Mr. Worf, villains who twirl their mustaches are easy to spot. Those who clothe themselves in good deeds are well camouflaged.
I think after yesterday, people will not be so ready to trust her.
Maybe. But she, or someone like her, will always be with us, waiting for the right climate in which to flourish, spreading fear in the name of righteousness. Vigilance, Mr. Worf. That is the price we have to continually pay.
And so from that clip, think about Picard's final statement. You know, she or someone like us will always be with us, clothing good deeds, or, you know, being a wolf in sheep's clothing, more or less. And so you do got to be mindful, because nobody thinks they're evil or even says they're evil. So you can break mass hysterias down into 5 broad elements. And, you know, when you get into a historical situation, you can look at these. So the first is fear. You got to be scared of something. Second is social tension. So you've got to have some type of, you know, other, or a group you don't like, where they're on the outs. Economic anxiety, fear for your money, your things. Will broaden the definition of economics when we get there. You're going to have weak or absent authority. So whoever could legitimately stop it, they're not going to. Just the nature of how these things go. And then lastly, you'll have power seekers, somebody who looks to wrap up all of the elements into one big package. And depending on which hysteria, sometimes you see more of these, some elements are more prominent, but if you don't have all 5, it won't be a full-blown hysteria. That's just how it works. So let's start with the most basic element, which is fear. So fear is at the root of everything else. People often react badly when they're scared, and it's that need to find a cause for their fears. So what is it? Why are we scared? And the specific of fear can vary widely. They can be real things: communists, spies, terrorism. They can be intangibles: witches, Satan, or aliens. All can be cause of fear. And it just depends on the historical circumstances you're in, what you drum up the fear of. So next element that really is critical is you got to have social tensions. Now, this quote is from an episode of The Twilight Zone that we can watch, where it's called The Monsters Do on Maple Street. And it's where a town or a street has all their power turned off. And one of the characters starts looking for who the aliens are, and his name's Charlie. And he says, he always was an oddball. Him and his whole family, oddballs. So in a hysteria, there's going to be a group that becomes the target or the focus. Now, it usually will be people that were on the margins. So what does it mean to be on the margins? Well, it's people that, you know, were not the most popular people in the society. So it might be the D student instead of the A student. You know, Jews, this happened to them in the Holocaust and in the Black Death. Muslims, you could argue it's happening to in America today. And all of this makes them convenient targets because people already don't like them. Like there's already an issue with those people. So women in witches, on the witch hysteria, and again, Jews in the Black Death, like I said, in Salem, or if you've read The Crucible, it was people that were, didn't go to church. Now, here is an excerpt from our current president's, one of his speeches. So I'll let it speak for itself, and you can see the fears he's playing to.
Nearly 180,000 illegal immigrants with criminal records ordered deported from our country are tonight roaming free to threaten peaceful citizens. The number of new illegal immigrant families who have crossed the border so far this year already exceeds the entire total from 2015. They are being released by the tens of thousands into our communities with no regard for the impact on public safety or resources.
Now, another element you're going to have is economic anxiety. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you got to broaden your term to understand this a little better to what economics means, it doesn't always mean just the overall economy, but it can also mean like your actual stuff, your possessions, because the word economics, eco means house. So it can mean really how we provide for those three basic things: food, clothing, shelter. Really, that's, all how we survive. So in hysterias, economic anxiety appears when the economy is doing poorly or people get worried about their actual stuff. So if you're in imminent danger of, getting, your beaten up, your stuff taken, or if just generally circumstances are changing, such as Europe in the early modern period with the printing press and the Black Death ending feudalism, or Europe at the eve of the Industrial Revolution as the machines are putting people out of work, any of those. Now, it can be a vague unease, or like I said, or a specific fear of losing your job. Or being immediately threatened. One of the reasons Americans get so scared of communism is because there's no possessions. And like I mentioned, the changing economy in Europe and America today, we are vastly changing. So all of those lead to economic anxiety. Now, here it took me about 30 seconds to find this on the internet, but again, you can see this pretty much plays up to people's fears. And this is from a few years ago, but I think the sentiments are out there today. It's also kind of like a meme, and I find memes, at least when I see on some of my Facebook stuff, is an absolute way to drum up hysteria. So here is a clip from Beauty and the Beast where you can see Gaston drumming up some, all kinds of some elements here. So as you listen to the song, listen for the lyrics especially, and what elements do you see?
Beast will make off with your children. He'll come after them in the night.
No.
We're not safe till his head is mounted on my wall. I say we kill the beast.
We're not safe until he's dead.
He'll come stalking us at night.
Said to sacrifice our children to his monstrous appetite.
He'll wreak havoc on our village if we let him wander free.
So it's time to take some action, boys. It's time to follow me. The mist through the woods, through the darkness and the shadows. It's a nightmare, but it's one exciting ride. Say a prayer, then we're there at the drawbridge of a castle, and there's something truly terrible inside. It's a beast. He's got fangs, razor-sharp ones, massive paws, killer claws for the feast. Hear him roar, see him foam, but we're not coming home till he's dead. Good and dead! Kill the beast!
No, I won't let you do this.
If you're not with us, you're against us. Bring the old man. Get your hands off me. We can't have them running off to warn the creature.
Let us out!
We'll rid the village of this beast. Who's with me?
It's a torch, not your horse.
Throw your courage to the sticking place.
We're counting on Gaston to lead the way. Through a mist, to a wood, where within a haunted castle something's lurking that you don't see every day. He's a beast, one as tall as a mountain. We won't rest till he's good and deceased. Sally forth, Sally ho, grab your sword, grab your bow, praise the Lord, and here we go.
We'll lay siege to the castle and bring back his head.
I have to warn the beast. This is all my fault. Oh, Papa, what are we going to do?
No. We'll think of something.
We don't like what we don't understand. In fact, it scares us, and this monster is mysterious at least. Bring
I knew it was foolish to get our hopes up.
Maybe it would have been better if she'd never come at all. Could it be?
Is it she?
Sacre bleu! Invaders!
Encroachers!
And they have the mirror.
Warn the master. If it's a fight they want, we'll be ready for them. Who's with me? Ah!
Take whatever booty you can find. But remember, the beast is mine!
Raise the flag, sing us home. Here we come, the 50 strong and 50 men can be born. Let's kill the beast.
Okay. Now, your fourth element that you're going to have in this is, I call it the no grown-up factor, if you've read Lord of the Flies, which is about a group of kids on an island. But what it means is, whoever could be the grown-up in the room, who's going to say no, like, this is crazy, what are you doing? That is, that's what's missing. So for whatever reason, the regular authority that could stop it doesn't. Now, there's typically two things. One is the authority can actually just be physically absent, okay, like Lord of the Flies, where there's no grown-ups on the island. Or it could actually be, and you see this a lot, you could even argue you see it in the Trump era, is that whoever's going to call the person out, they're not going to because they're scared, or they just don't want to get involved. And either way, that means you're in crazy town. And the hysteria will usually end when the, quote, grown-ups return. But that may take a while. And when you're in the middle of it, it sucks. So a couple examples. During the Reformation, the Catholic Church, their power was splintering. So the witch burnings you saw happened during the Reformation. In Germany, where the Catholic Church was they were fighting religious wars, or in France especially as well. Or during the Cold War, when Eisenhower, the Republican president, didn't want to stand up to Joseph McCarthy. You could argue that what you saw recently with Mitt Romney standing up for the impeachment of President Trump and saying he was going to vote to convict, but that took a lot of courage. And sadly, we don't often have as much courage as we would like. Now, here's a clip from Lord of the Flies. Spoiler alert, it's going to give away the ending. But the kids have been on the island for a few weeks, and there have been no grown-ups in sight. And what you can see here is that is Ralph, who is sort of the good guy of the plot, and he's getting chased by Jack and the other boys that have demonized him after they've killed his friend Piggy. And I'll let the clip speak for itself, but it speaks to the importance of, having adults in the room. And this is the last page of the book.
Jack!
What are you guys doing?
Now, the final element you're going to have here that's going to put it all together. So you're going to have people who look around and see what's, these other elements are there. How can I advance my own position this way? And we call these people power seekers because that's what they do. So often it's not someone who sometimes is totally on the outs, but they might be somebody who maybe doesn't have as much power as they would like, and they look to get more. So they're not always coming out of nowhere. So the guy in the corner there is Joseph McCarthy, who in the 1950s was a senator from Wisconsin, but he's one of 96 senators at the time. There were 48 states. And this is his way of getting press. You see this today with people becoming YouTube phenomenons or social media presences, same thing. Now, what's hard to know, right, is and these are people that they use the hysteria. They're either going to increase their status, they can settle grudges. They may or may not be sincere. It's hard to know if they really believe the stuff they're saying. Couple examples of this, we talked about Joseph McCarthy. If you've seen The Crucible, there's a guy named Reverend Paris who's very insecure about his status. So in Salem, he does that. And finds once the witches start getting found, it increases his standing. And then in Europe, people settled grudges through witch trials. So all of these things, when you have all of these, the society will go off the rails. So this last clip is one of my favorites, and it pretty much summarizes it best. So the movie South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut from 1995 is a brilliant satire of mass hysteria. I'll set up this clip for you, and then we'll kind of end this little mini lecture, is that the premise is these South Park kids, and there's 4 of them if you're not familiar with the show, and they fall in love with these comedian, not literally in love, but they're fans of these 2 Canadian comics called Terrence and Phillip. And in the Terrence and Phillip movie they go see, it's a lot of farting and a lot of swearing. So the kids come out farting and swearing. So the parents get so upset, what happened to our lovely children, that they decide to, blame somebody. And this song is called Blame Canada because it's, easy to find a scapegoat because Terrence and Phillip are Canadian. So the song itself in 1999 was nominated for an Academy Award. As far as I can tell, it's the only song with an F-bomb ever to get such a nomination. But as you watch, see the elements that they play to, and the whole movie ends up being a war with Canada, plays it all up brilliantly. I recommend it. So there you go. And then watch the clip, and then we'll use these mass hysteria elements. We'll see them again.
Parents, our children are out of control. This is what happens when toilet humor is allowed to run rampant.
That's right. Kenny set himself on fire because he saw Terrence and Phillip do it in that dirty movie.
We must stop dirty language from getting to our children's ears. We must go fight the source of it.
But what is the source?
Oh, that's easy. Times have changed. Our kids are getting worse. They won't obey their parents. They just want to fart and curse.
Should we blame the government or blame society?
Or should we blame the images on TV?
No, blame Canada. Blame Canada. For their beady little eyes and flapping heads so full of lies. Blame Canada. Blame Canada. We need to form a full assault. It's Canada's fault.
Don't blame me for my son Stan. He saw the darn cartoon and now he's off to join the Klan. And my boy Eric once had my picture on his shelf, but now when I see him it tells me to fuck myself.
Well, blame Canada. Blame Canada. It seems that everything's gone wrong since Canada came along. Blame Canada. Blame Canada.
They're not even a real country anyway.
My son could have been a doctor or a lawyer, rich and true. Instead, he burned up like a piggy on a barbecue.
Should we blame the matches? Should we blame the fire? Or the doctors who allowed it to expire?
Heck no! Blame Canada! Blame Canada! With all the hockey hullabaloo.
And that bitch Anne Murray, too.
Blame Canada! Shame on Canada! Oh, the smoke we must stop, the trash we must bash, the laughter and fun must all be undone. We must blame them and cause a fuss before somebody thinks of blaming us.